My name is John Mugonya. I am the Program Manager Uganda at Agripreneurship Alliance. I am delighted today to be moderating this webinar on water. This webinar is webinar number 5 in our webinar 10 webinar series titled Climate Change and the African Entrepreneur. This webinar is organized by the Agripreneurship Alliance with the kind support of ICOM Foundation for the Development of Origin Resources. Before introducing the subject of water and our speakers today, allow me to say something about language interpretation and some housekeeping rules. This webinar is in English, but we have an interpretation channel for French that you can access. So to access this channel, if you are using a laptop, please go at the bottom of your screen, click the globe sign, and then select French. If you are using a phone, please go to the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen and select French. A few more housekeeping rules. The webinar is recorded and it will be shared on our communication channels. Please mute your microphone during the presentations and when you're not speaking. Turn off your camera when you're not speaking. Use the chat room to introduce yourself, comment, and ask questions. Now I have the opportunity to introduce our topic and our great speakers today. Ladies and gentlemen, water is a very important resource. About 60% of our bodies are made up of water. And this is because beyond the water that we drink, most of the food that we eat contains water. So that speaks to the importance of water to agriculture, but also the livelihoods of the majority of the people that depend on agriculture and agribusiness. However, this important resource is facing immense pressure from climate change and other socioeconomic factors, including population growth. So today, we have 2 presenters who are going to speak to us on the issues pertaining water, climate change, but also strategies and opportunities to mitigate climate change and adapt to the effects on climate change. Our first speaker today is Mr. Nicholas Loan, President, co-founder and managing partner of Waterpreneurs. Mr. Nicholas Leon has over 40 years of experience in social building businesses and entrepreneurship. Mr. Nicholas Loan today will speak to us on the general context of water issues, but specifically focusing on Africa. Nicholas, please take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Pleasure to be invited to talk about water on this webinar number 5. I attended the previous 4 webinars of this series, very interesting, and indeed already water was alluded to or even sometimes highlighted, like last session on soil. It was clear the interconnection with water, agriculture, and the larger topic of food, energy, related to agripreneurship. Next slide, please. Quick presentation about Waterpreneurs. We are a small consulting organization based in Geneva. We have expertise in the water nexus. That's the water connected to every other topic, and that includes agriculture, but not just. It also connects with energy, with water for biodiversity in general, and even more focused drinking water, water facilitation, and so on. So that's the nexus. That's the connections of water with all of the topics. And we are focused on connecting all stakeholders around water, in particular entrepreneurs all around the world, and in particular in Africa. And we do that with the idea that entrepreneurs with sustainable development solutions in the sector of water have the capacity to change the world for the better. Next slide, please. We have just to finalize the presentation about Waterpreneurs, we have 3 lines of services. We start by identifying these solutions, and then we connect them in the format of local marketplaces in presence so that they gain visibility, and then we accompany them so that they can grow. Next slide, please. The context about water, and it's a worldwide issue, concern, and everything that I'm going to cover here in this presentation has a global perspective, and indeed relates also specifically to Africa. I've been spending quite a number of months and years in Africa, maybe 50% of the countries I've been traveling to. So I have a little bit of knowledge about the situation in Africa in general. Of course, talking about water in Africa is maybe a challenge, because in some countries you'd have not enough water. Take northern part of Africa, for example, or in other countries. I was in DRC recently. I mean, there is a lot of water. So the situation is not equal. But the reality is that with climate change, there are changes, major changes all over the place. And that's also true for Africa, and also true for the specificities of dry countries or too much water countries. The local issue with water is about everywhere in our daily life. And on the right, there is a little drawing showing all the needs and usage that we can have all over the place, all around the world. And I mean, from drinking water to sanitation to agriculture and so on. And water is about everywhere. So it's something that we face in our life every second, and I don't need to insist on that. Next slide, please. Big numbers. Agriculture is basically 70% of the usage of water, and only a bit less than 20% for industry, and domestic 12%. That's worldwide. And the big trends are rapid growth population all over the place, and in particular in Africa. You know that better than me. And the increase in wealth and dietary change, moving to meat in particular. And on top of that, the use of water is increasing proportionally to this rapid population growth, to the increase in dietary change and all other usage. At the same time, 1/3 of the world population does not have access to proper drinking water, and in particular in Africa, we all know that very well. Now, a little bit of focus. If we look at drinking water, that relates to the SDG 6, Sustainable Development Goal number 6. Clearly, and you'll get the presentation, so you'll be able to read all this in detail, but clearly, there is a priority to make sure that clean water is accessible to everyone. And that's so true in Africa, in particular, where a number of water sources water catchment are not good for drinking. And the key thing is that without clean water, you can't have proper development, you can't take care of yourself, you can't go for education and training. So you basically miss the very, very basic needs. So then you can not focus on other needs, such as developing agripreneurship, right? So this is, if there is a clear priority for entrepreneurship, in particular in the agripreneurship field, if also prioritize this access to sanitation and clean water, and the next speaker, Olivier, will allude to it, will cover it actually. The second element, I've just covered it before, but here an emphasis on the fact that agriculture is the main consumer of water overall, has consequences on how to best use this water for agriculture. And drip irrigation is coming very, very strongly all over the place, and not just here in so-called developed countries, but also in Asia, in South America, and in Africa. It's a big trend, and there is a lot of investment going into that. Another key element related to water is the usage of water for sanitation. And first of all, you know that also access to proper hygienic toilet is not the majority, far from that. And there is a whole business going on, actually, that is mostly born in countries like India or countries like Kenya or Ghana, where we're talking about reusing the wastewater from the human resources, the toilets, into either biofuel or fertilizers. And this whole economy, circular economy, is going very, very fast, actually very well inspired by continents like Africa, indeed. And here there is a whole of opportunity for entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector to leverage this new approach to circular economy and save water and benefit from the byproduct from the water that is used for sanitation. Another big trend is the desalination. If you are next to the sea, that can be an option. Of course, it comes with the issue of the brine that you get from the desalinated water. So there are various technologies that can minimize this byproduct or waste of brine, but that's only applied to countries that are next to oceans. But still, there is a strong trend, as you can see on the curve, of the number of desalination factories being installed since now 40 years. Now, the big issue, big time, is the plastic pollution. It's all over the place. Here, mostly in Asia, as you can see, and China, unfortunately, leading the pack in the quantity of plastic waste ending into the ocean. But it is also so true for Africa. Whenever I have been to countries in Africa, I've seen over the years more and more plastic all over the place, in particular these water sachets that you drink and throw, but not just that, in the rivers and so on. So a big issue, pollution of water, big time. And in this perspective, for agriculture to have proper water, there is also potential entrepreneur initiative that would serve the agripreneurship scope to address the plastic pollution. Yes, it's not just about plastic pollution. Another big pollution is the pollution from industries. in many countries where I have been in Africa, you have this mining, and in particular illegal mining, where you have byproduct for treating the gold or whatever that goes directly into the water. And this also should be addressed collectively between the agripreneur community and the industry or mining industries. There is a need also here, when we talk about water and the usage of water, to have a shared approach to the use of water. And I've just alluded to pollution from industry, that's basically it here on this slide. Now, in terms of trend and opportunities in the sector, I've started to touch on it. Clearly, the nexus, the connection between sanitation, energy, food, and health is coming very, very strongly with this idea of going to circular economy. Also, no need to really emphasize on it, off-grid and smart technologies are coming very, very strong. And I'm just picking the one highlighted in black here. This idea of a hybrid business model or social business model or small organization teaming up with large organization, even corporations, is a trend that is coming very, very strong. And innovative finance, in particular, the pay-as-you-go is part of it, but there is a number of innovative finance setup that are coming up now very strongly, in particular in places like Africa. Here, an example of a water smart technology that is now being rolled out. Here, it takes the example of Spain. You see, these technologies that you see now coming up in Africa, they are also used in many other places in the world. Here, in this case, Spain. The challenges, the competition for water, in particular due to climate change and the change of pattern in the water, the rainfall and so on, this is coming very, very strong. And the big issue is that because of lack of regulation, because of lack of good rules and by the policymakers, then it's very difficult for all the users to work together peacefully and share the water properly. So there is a big issue here. And when you are into the field of agripreneurship, you can have an influence to talk with the policymakers to help and encourage them to have proper policies so that the water will be used and shared between the different users properly. In terms of benefits, if water is properly managed, then it will allow for increased income. And that's true for agriculture indeed. We've seen good example last week with the soil, the presentation of the FAO, and it will have all side benefits like decreasing conflict between the users. Proper management of water will help improve the fertility. Indeed, proper management will also help minimize impact of shortage. Here are a few examples from various continents that can be applied to Africa. For example, the Barsha pump in Nepal is now currently being tested in South Africa. Manobi is an organization that is based in Senegal and now rolling out in Benin in particular. And Aqua40 is developed in Switzerland, rolling out in Americas, and also starting to roll out in some of the African countries. So my point here is that technologies, they could be developed in one part of the world, and now they are being leveraged in other parts of the world. So for entrepreneurs in Africa in particular, it's interesting to look out what's coming from outside also and keep the eyes open. Indeed, there are a lot of innovation that are being now coming from your own countries, and the combination of these innovations with other innovation can be very powerful. A few numbers, I mean, I can go quickly through that. I'm looking at the time. Indeed, you'll have this presentation, so it will be useful that you keep these numbers in mind. and the trend of here digitization is very, very strong. So we should not shy away from the technology, in particular the capacity to compute information, to collect them, to put them into the cloud and fully use them, in particular for the provision of the weather and so on. Yeah, but not just that. It's also applied to supply chain integration, and also the shifting of production and consumption patterns. The issue that you have all over the world is also applying to Africa with aging farmers. So youth coming up with innovative ways of doing agriculture are much welcome, and actually it's a condition for attracting youth into the water agriculture sector. Yeah, and I'm providing also a few examples. You'll get the presentation here. I will encourage you, and I will conclude here. I'm giving here 10 examples that you can inspire yourself from. And you see there are the pitch deck here with links to the pitch deck, and you will be able to learn what's coming up and maybe get inspired and maybe start up your own business, connect with these guys, and maybe do something in your own country. Yeah, I think I'll stop here because I see the time is also running. Yeah, thanks so much. That was fast.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. That was a very good presentation. Very important points raised there. That water is a very important resource. That solving the challenges of water will take collaboration, and that plastic is an emerging threat to water. So we can't agree more. In fact, the World Environmental Day on 6th June is going to be celebrated on a theme, solutions to plastic pollution. So that's head on. We have a question from Isaac, and he's asking if you have any comment on phosphorus that comes from wastewater, as using wastewater in circular economy. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think I covered it in my presentation. Isaac, you can come back to that. And there are, in the list of entrepreneurs I provide at the end, you have a few examples. But clearly, what's coming strong, and actually not just in Africa. I can tell you here in Switzerland, where I'm, the idea of reusing the water for the toilet into the gardening, or using the PP as a fertilizer is actually big time. So it's and these things, very interestingly, were piloted in countries like Kenya and Ghana and India. So you can be very proud that you are actually leading the pack into this innovation of reusing the wastewater from human resources, the toilet, into energy for gas or fertilizers. Does that answer your question?
Right. Thank you so much. And I see your hand is up.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Great presentation. I was very intrigued to hear about turning wastewater into biogas and fertilizer. Could you say a few more words of explanation about that?
It's very simple. I mean, when you go to when you collect the product from the toilet, your own toilet, if you keep it into a tank, then it liberates the gas, and this gas can be used for the cooking. And there are a number of entrepreneurs, in particular in Africa, who are doing a business out of this. That's one. Second, the dry part of the shit into the tank can be used as how do you say, to burn it instead of wood, again, to cook. And finally, some of the products that you have in the tank with all the shit and the PP can be used for fertilizing the farm. And when I say can, is currently being applied by an entrepreneurs. And I can give you examples afterward. And I think I provide. But you have in an example that is well known in Kenya is Sanaji, next to Nakuru.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicholas. We will now proceed to our next speaker, who is an entrepreneur dealing in WASH and climate change. We have Olivier Nihimbabazwe from Burundi. Mr. Olivier has been representing Burundi in several summits, including pre-COP26, One Young World Summit 2022, Youth for Climate Change, among others. Olivier is the founder and executive director of Water for Development, an award-winning organization using social innovation to provide access to safe drinking water to communities in Burundi. Olivier has received awards and recognition, including MasterCard Foundation Scholarship, Deep Prize Award, the Swiss Water Partnership Youth Water Challenge, among others. Today, Olivier will be sharing with us water issues and opportunities from the lens of an African young entrepreneur.
Good morning once again, everyone. Thank you, Mr. John, for the introduction. I am Nihimbazwe from Burundi. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Water for Development, which is an organization that was created by young people in Burundi. And we are currently based in the northwestern part of the country. And I'm joining this call from Cibitoke province, for those who know Burundi. So I'll be talking about what we are doing, but I will focus on the part of a social business that we are implementing to provide access to safe drinking water in rural areas. And basically what we are doing is, just to give you an overview, we are producing chlorine locally, which is used to disinfect drinking water to make it safe for drinking, and also providing water treatment services in rural areas. I want to speak a little bit about the challenge of safe drinking water globally, and then I will talk about the situation in Burundi. The previous speakers talked about the importance of drinking water, and I want to emphasize on this that, of course, drinking water is key to good health, and we cannot have sustainable communities we don't have drinking water, because drinking water affects the achievement of several sustainable development goals, including the one related to education, to health, gender equality, and also to climate change. But of course, also the targets related to nutrition. However, today, there are 2 billion people who still use water that is not safe to drink. This is despite the SDG target 6.1, which states that by 2030, everyone should have access to safe and affordable drinking water. But the statistics shows that at the current rate of progress, only 37% in sub-Saharan Africa will be able to have access to safe drinking water by 2030. Early this year, it was in March, there was the UN Water Conference in New York, and I was privileged to attend the conference. And we can see clearly that we are out of track to achieving the SDG number 6. And the 2030 agenda is just ahead of us to now I want to talk about some of the issues that hinder the progress, or rather accelerated needed on achieving SDG number 6, especially the target 6.1, which talks about universal access to safe drinking water. One of them is, of course, climate change, and you can see this all over, including at the grassroots level in the communities, whereby you realize that the extreme weather events, could it be heavy rains, could it be droughts, affect heavily the sector of drinking water. And also, this comes with the issue of water contamination, whereby the water quality deteriorates because of some of these issues. When, for instance, there are floods, you understand that the water infrastructure might be destroyed, and as a result, you might see the contamination of drinking water, which is used by people. There are also competing needs for water, especially in the agriculture sector, whereby you realize that agriculture is also contributing in some ways to the quality of drinking water. And also, when we talk about developing countries, realize that there is no strong political will in investing in the water sector, because of course there are competing priorities. And so this is what I was talking about, how floods can damage infrastructure. So this is the connection between climate change, the impacts of climate change on drinking water, and how droughts drive contamination of drinking water, but also affects the issue of water availability, and also how this affects the economy of the countries. And so with this, we understand that there is need for climate resilient interventions when we talk about improving access to safe drinking water. And so the issue of water contamination, this is where I want to focus on, because I've earlier said that 2 billion people, that is around 30% of the world population, still drink water which is contaminated. And this unsafe drinking water is considered as the main driver of waterborne diseases, especially diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, typhoid fever. And you have heard of this in many countries like Malawi, where there was recently a deadly cholera outbreak. And also in Burundi, we are actually intervening. There was a cholera outbreak since the month of January this year. And so unsafe drinking water is the cause of about 485 deaths every year. And when we talk about the diarrheal diseases, we understand that young people and children, but also women, are the most affected. And today, every day, 700 children who are aged below 5 years die because of diarrheal diseases. And UNICEF last year published a report whereby they say that in areas of conflict, children are 20 times more likely to die from diarrheal diseases rather than the conflict itself. So we need to understand that this is a very burning issue, especially in developing countries. So what is the situation in Burundi? In Burundi, diarrhea is the third leading cause of mortality among children aged under 5. And the prevalence of diarrhea is the highest among all the countries in East African community. And it is responsible for 15% of child mortality. These are the statistics from the Ministry of Health. And it is one of the most important risk factors of malnutrition. So what is the cause of, what are the, do we know the causes of this challenge of diarrhea in Burundi? Of course, there is evidence that drinking water which is contaminated is one of the major drivers of diarrhea in Burundi, because a study that was conducted in 2019 by GIZ revealed that 20% of water sources are contaminated by bacteria. And they moved ahead at the household level to test the samples of drinking water, and they realized that the contamination goes up to 70%, which means the water can be contaminated not only at the water source, but also during the supply chain, during the transport and storage. And this is also explained by the poor handling practices. And this, I have to let you know that historically, water, especially in the rural areas of Burundi, was believed to be safe to drink without any treatment. But what the data, what the research is showing us today, things have changed. So in Burundi, water is only treated in the cities and municipalities. And in the rural areas, water is basically not treated. There has been many interventions in the sector of water and sanitation have been promoting, encouraging the boiling method to try to make water safe for drinking. But again, the previous demographic and health survey has shown that only 4%, or rather 96% of rural households drinking water without any prior treatment. So boiling drinking water has been promoted for years, but it is clear that the adoption is not the reality. So we know the solution. How can we address this challenge of water contamination? How can we make sure, amid this climate change challenge and population growth, of course, it is one of the challenges that drive water contamination, because you realize people construct houses and toilets near the water sources, and this, of course, affects also the water contamination. So the World Health Organization recommends the use of chlorination, or rather use of chlorine to treat drinking water. And this has been, of course, proven to be the most effective water treatment method in different countries. And it is also used, by the way, here but just in rural, or rather in urban areas like cities and municipalities. But rural areas, especially talking about the case of Burundi, this has not been done up to now. And so when we were doing our assessment to try to find out what could be the issue, why is it that only people in urban areas have access to treated water? And we realized that one of the issues is limited access to chlorine products, because it is basically used, or rather imported from outside, and is actually costly. And also there is lack of capacity and technology that is adapted to enable, of course, water treatment using chlorine. And talking about chlorination, why is it the most effective method? It's because it can eliminate 99.9, almost 100% of pathogenic microorganisms in water, and also can protect water which is stored for up to 72 hours, which means that if water is chlorinated and they store it at the household level, even if there are microorganisms that can actually be introduced in the water, water will still be protected because of the residual chlorine that is in that water. So what are we doing at Water for Development to actually try to contribute to addressing this challenge? I already talked about what Water for Development is, but I just want to say that when we started, the initial idea was actually to give back. I remember I created this organization alongside with my colleagues when I was still in Uganda doing my master's degree. And the idea was to implement just a give back initiative, which was, of course, on the issue of water treatment, improving water quality in my community. But then when we started, we realized that because the intervention that we had was focusing on treating drinking water using chlorine, but we had to import chlorine from outside the country. But then we started brainstorming, how can we make this, because the intervention was very relevant from the side of the beneficiaries, but also the authority, the administrative leaders. So we thought how we can make this intervention sustainable over time. And then we did the research to find how we can make the chlorine locally. And then we were able to find a technology which is called water technology, which has been developed by a social enterprise based in Geneva. And this technology allows us to produce chlorine locally using just table salt and clean water and a source of energy. And this is a technology which is solar powered. So when we started producing chlorine, many organizations, including the National Agency of Rural Water and Sanitation, were like, so you guys can produce chlorine locally when you have, while you have been importing for so long from outside. So why don't we make, why don't we sign a memorandum of understanding and see how we can collaborate? So this is how we found the opportunity of creating a social business model so that we can be able to contribute to making water safe to drink while breeding the financial sustainability, because we don't want to always depend on donors, because you know people always need safe drinking water, and the people will need always drinking water, and this will not depend on someone who say I will give you the funding or I will not give you. So this is how it came about. Now, how is this social business model designed? So we employ young people to produce chlorine and they distribute in the community where this product is used to treat drinking water. And we have different approaches whereby, as I said, we partner with NGOs who have projects that deal with water treatment. And then we do supply them with chlorine. And also, we provide water treatment services, whereby we also focus on water sources that do not come from like piped water system, or rather centralized water systems. Because in rural areas of Burundi, over 70% of people drink water that does not come from the common centralized water systems. And so there's another technology that we use that enables people who use like the other sources of drinking water where there are no tanks. And we install this innovative technology that enables people to treat drinking water right at the point of water collection. So these are the specifications of the product. The name of the product is sodium hypochlorite. It is the liquid chlorine. And as I said, we use the table salt as raw materials, which is locally available. And then we use, or rather the concentration of the chlorine is 6 grams per liters. This is the pH, which is between 9.5 and 10.5. And of course, the technology we use is electrochlorination using the water technology. So talking about the business model, I have already highlighted this. We do sell chlorine in bulk sale, and we partner with NGOs, we partner with the government, and we also do support during emergency situations, whereby we also put chlorine in small bottles that can be used at household level to treat water in such areas. And also with the water disinfection services that we provide, there are fees that we collect from our partners and also the local, basically the local government. So we will not talk so much about this, but I want to highlight how this business model is sustainable. First of all, it contributes to reducing the prevalence of diarrhea. This is the social part of the impact. And it is also, it takes into account the environmental aspect, because first of all, when we produce chlorine, we use the solar powered technology, which means there are no carbon emissions involved in the process of producing chlorine. Secondly, by chlorinating drinking water, this eliminates the need for boiling drinking water using the wood burning stove, which is the most common method used in rural areas, not only in Africa, but generally in, not only in Burundi, but generally in Africa. But also the economic part. Here, I already talked about the financial sustainability, but also this product is 30% less costly compared to the one that I've been using and imported from outside. So this is the process that we use to produce chlorine. We have a mini laboratory, and where we do the production, we do the verification of the concentration, we do the stabilization so that the product can be stored for long. And we do the packaging and the transport until we use the product in the field. But also we do water testing, because we want to make sure that the quantity that we use is actually matching the chlorine demand of a specific water source that we are dealing with. So talking about the impact, I would like to share that as of today, there are 160,000 beneficiaries, over 160,000 beneficiaries who have access to safe drinking water thanks to our business. And there are over 56,000 beneficiaries that we were able to reach over the last 3 or rather 4 months during the when we were responding to the cholera outbreak in Cibitoke province. And also we have been able to use this same product to respond to COVID-19 in schools, whereby we were able to donate hand washing kits, but also chlorine that can be used for hand washing, because chlorine can also be used to wash hands where there are no where soaps are not available, like in rural schools. So, but also I've already talked about the environmental impact. I would like to highlight that our business model has created 6 jobs for young people, but also during the implementation of the cholera outbreak response project, we're able to employ around 30 women in the communities that in where we were intervening. So this is the market size. I will not talk about this, but allow me to highlight that our project has been supported by different organizations, including D-Prize, Swiss Water Partners, and others. And currently, we are also working with UNICEF Burundi to implement this project that looks at responding to cholera outbreak. And we of course partner with the National Agency of Rural Water and Sanitation. And last year we were able to win the Innovation Award, which is a recognition to young people who have innovative business idea in Burundi. So with this, allow me to end here. And thank you so much for your kind attention.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you, Nicholas and Olivier. So I have a couple of questions here for Olivier. The first one is, does your system use a filtration system in addition to the water treatment? And in addition, Rafayette and Gerard would like to know about the long-term health effects of chlorine and whether it is safe to consume chlorinated water. Have there been any studies conducted on this matter?
Thank you so much. The first question was asking whether we do also use filtration system to, in the process of treating drinking water. So basically, we only focus on disinfection because the water sources that we deal with do not have issues to do with water turbidity. And the major challenge is actually microbial contamination. That's why we only do disinfection. And the second question talks about the long-term health effects of chlorine on the human health. So this is, I think, an interesting question because there are a lot of studies that have been conducted around this issue. And the consensus is that there are standards that have to be followed in terms of the concentration that should be used when treating drinking water. And so these standards have to be followed. For instance, the WHO recommends that the residual chlorine or free chlorine should be between 0.5 and 1 part per million. So this means that as any product, or rather any chemical, because chlorine is a chemical, if you increase the dosage more than required or recommended, there might be the impacts, especially on the consumer. So we make sure that we use the standards that have been put in place. That's why I talked about the issue of water quality monitoring, and where we do assessment to check free chlorine and chlorine demand of the specific water source that we are dealing with. And so this is very important. So the studies also show that if chlorine is used excessively, there might be health effects such as cancer in the long term. So we do make sure that we work within the standards that have been put there. But we all understand that this is a product that is used generally in worldwide. And last year I was in Manchester, and I tested the water that was coming the tap, and I realized there was free chlorine. And the same case in the US. So this is globally recognized as the effective product to make water safe. Thank you.
But I'm really grateful to both Nicholas and Olivier for the great presentations that they've done today. And we will be sharing the edited YouTube to make sure that we lose some of the distractions from the recording from today onto our YouTube channel, and we'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of that link. And we will also be sharing a copy of the full deck from today, which also includes some additional resources. So some infographics from FAO, and it means that you can go through our colleagues and friends' presentations in detail as well in your own time. So I'm just going to close off today. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Again, apologies for any problems that we've had on our side in terms of technical issues, but we look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. And next week, we will be looking at the really interesting topic of agroforestry. And we've got some amazing speakers, researchers, entrepreneurs, people on the ground, talking both about the potential and positive implications of agroforestry, as well as some of the opportunities that are available. And this obviously ties in everything with regards to climate change, to water, and to soils. So thank you. Thank you to John for moderating. Thank you to Jade for taking some of the questions and managing the chat. And thank you again to Olivier and Nicholas. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.